beginning of the year, I was in the news for cold urticaria, and I just so happened to be trans. So let's talk about how that went. Hi, my name's Max, and if you didn't know, I'm allergic to cold. I will put my first video explaining that up here. But this is Pride Month. Happy Pride Month, Internet. What is it like being in the news while you're trans? Well, it's horrendous. Let's rewind all the way to the beginning of this, I suppose. About 6 or 7 months ago, I started wearing a mask for cold urticaria, and I got shouted at quite a lot in the street, just, you know, as you do. Something about the zombie apocalypse. I swear I had a woman go, "Think of the children," in the shop, and I was like, what? Are we in The Simpsons? It was just a lot in one day, and I posted in the local Facebook group, "Hey, I wear a mask because I'm allergic to cold. How about just leave me alone?" And from there I got really positive response from the community saying, "Hey, it's cool, I'll wave if I see you," all that stuff. But I also got contacted by the BBC asking, do I want to do a piece on it to raise awareness? Yes, I did. The guy came over to my house, we took some photos, did an interview, and I said in the interview, I am non-binary, I use they them pronouns. If you don't mention it in the article, probably no one will notice. I don't want to draw attention to it, but I do want to have my pronouns used. And he was fine with it. I will link that in the description below because it is a good article. I don't actually think he used a single pronoun at all, but he didn't call me she. So I can make my peace with that. A guy rang me from Nottingham Post saying, "Hey, we would like to cover your story. We saw it in the BBC and you're from Nottingham, so let's do it." And I was like, yeah, cool, great. There's some questions over the phone, and then the photographer came and took some photos of me. I will again link that article down in the description below. And I'd also said to him, "Hey, I use they them pronouns. We don't need to mention the whole gender thing. Just use my pronouns because it's like my name. If you're going to use my name, use my pronouns." He's like, yeah, that's fine, that's fine. So I'm like, yeah, cool, this is fine. Meanwhile, I get another phone call from an agency saying, "Hey, we want to run your story. We'll pay you for photos." I'm like, okay, cool. And just so happens that they'd sent a photographer to my house. Did you know that journalists can access the electoral roll, find your address, and then just show up at your house? Because I didn't know that. And we did the interview again. It was like all of the journalists had all asked me basically the same questions, and I'd given the same answers because it was, how did it happen? What is your experience? And that hasn't changed between these interviews. So we did that, and that was fine. I was talking on Facebook to the guy that was writing the story, so the photographer was giving all the answers and taking the pictures and getting all my responses and stuff, but there was a different guy writing it. So I was talking to him on Facebook. I was like, "Hey, I'm non-binary, I use they them pronouns, can you please just use my pronouns? We don't need to make a big deal of it, but can you just, you know, they them?" He's like, "Yeah, sure, that's fine." So later that night, or it was the day after, loads of people just suddenly pop up on Facebook and they're like, "Hey, did you know there's an article in the Nottingham Post calling you she and her?" And I was like, oh my god. So I messaged the guy and I was like, "Hey, you said you'd use my pronouns, but you haven't. Could you, you know, not do that?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, sorry, we're getting it changed now, I did get it changed. That's in the description below. It was unnecessary gendering. It doesn't matter what my gender is. Like, you don't need to say, "Woman allergic to cold, man allergic to cold." I'm still allergic to cold. My gender doesn't really come into that. Just use my goddamn pronouns. Anyway, that was all changed, that was fine. So the journalist from the agency, this is getting confusing because I'm not going to use people's names because I'm not trying to get people demonized. I'm not talking about these specific people, I'm just talking as a whole about the experience. So I could just make names up, but I'm not going to do that because I'm going to get confused. So after the Nottingham Post article came out with all the misgendering, I messaged the agency journalist and I said, I will read this out. "Hiya, Can I just confirm I use they them pronouns and not she her, so please don't call me a woman or anything weird like that. And he said to me, okay, no worries. The photographer told me about this and I've informed my editor, and yeah, that should be fine. And then I put back, thanks, I just had the Nottingham Post put up an article with all kinds of misgendering, so I'm just double checking with everyone in the hopes that it won't happen again. Smiley face. And then he said, yeah, that's fine, I'd rather you tell us, I'd rather you tell instead of us doing something that upsets you. And then I said, wonderful, thank you. That is it. And then I get tagged in a large newspaper, the name I am not going to mention because it's horrendous. Woman allergic to cold, and I'm like, oh really? Not even using my name properly, just calling me Miss Fisher. I have never been a Miss Fisher. That is so weird for me. I had already checked with this guy and I was like, well, that's obviously not gonna get that fixed. And I was speaking to other trans people and that was the route we went. So I put in a formal complaint there. I was like, hey, I'm non-binary. I was told that the article would use my pronouns and not misgender me. Can you fix it? So they messaged me back like, hey, sorry, we'll fix it. So then it does get fixed, but then it's man, allergic to cold, Mr. Fisher, he, him, and I'm like, okay, fine, I guess. It's better, but still not right, but that was that. And then like on social media, I saw it on like all the on the official pages being shared, and like people in the comments trying to be transphobic saying, hey, that's not a man, and I'm like, correct, not a man. But I'm not going to give them that I wasn't going to give them that satisfaction by saying, hey, yeah, but also outing myself as non-binary to someone that's like, hey, you're definitely not a man. They're not going to go like, oh yeah, obviously non-binary, so I just didn't want to get into that. So then after I put in a formal complaint saying the pronoun thing, I got a phone call from, I think, the editor of the agency. I don't really know who he was, I didn't write it down because I was actually quite upset. He rang me like, well, you must have been, biologically, and I'm like, no, doesn't matter. I was born 6.5 pounds-ish. I don't know how much I was born. Things change. So, it doesn't matter what's on my birth certificate. That's not who I am now, because I'm not a baby. I'm 23 now. There was that, and he was just ringing, like, oh, you must, I understand that you're trans, and that's fine, but, you must have been, assigned something and transitioned from something. I'm like, it doesn't matter. Use my current pronouns. It doesn't matter what I was in the past. I wasn't always allergic to cold, and now I am. So how about we stick to the up-to-date information? So that was just a horrendous phone call, but whatever. That's the gender stuff, and then the bigger newspapers managed, I don't know how it happened, if I'm honest, but the actual factual information about my cold allergy and how we got to this magical point was just incorrect. Like, I understand that you have to make it kind of clickbaity, so I think one of the articles says it's a fatal reaction. I have never said that. It can be in some people, but that is not how I introduce it to people about myself. And they were saying that, like, when I sat in the grass for the first time, I couldn't breathe and went into anaphylactic shock. No, I didn't. So that's not how that happened. I have never said that that's how that happened. So I don't know how they got that from what I said, but okay. I was just trying to get the awareness of cold urticaria out there because it was getting a bit ridiculous how much I get shouted at. And I still get shouted at, so I don't know how effective the news thing was to watch that. But I did get on the bus once, and someone tapped me on the shoulder and said, oh, you were in the news, weren't you? And I was like, oh yes, I was. I asked some questions, respectfully, I answered, and they're like, yeah, you seem cool. Well, have a good day, keep warm. It was lovely. It was a good experience. But there was so much misinformation that was written in various articles, so it was just a bit, it was a bit not great. That's kind of why this channel exists, because I got so hacked off with not only them messing up the pronouns, I kind of expected that. It did feel like a kick in the guts all the same, but I was disappointed, not surprised. But the actual misinformation about the topic at hand really hacked me off. I decided that I was just going to tell my own story, my way from now on. And that is why I'm here. I have since been contacted by a different agency. We worked together on making another Cold Edge Carrier story, but it just wasn't interesting enough to be picked up, and that's fine. You know, that's kind of why I'm here, so I can just make my own content. But he was lovely, and he gave me a copy to read before it went out into his whatever it is, and he had used my pronouns correctly, so excellent. I've also since been contacted by the same people that messed up my pronouns, saying, hey, we want to talk about your transness, and absolutely not, because, you know, if you can't just use my pronouns right, I literally don't trust you to be able to talk about the intricacies of being trans, being non-binary, or anything queer. If anybody wants to come for me, that is my own decision for what I've chosen to put out there. Being trans in the news, even when it's not about trans stuff, is not good. I wouldn't recommend it to a friend. Honestly, it just wasn't good. If you want to talk about trans people, just use our pronouns. It's not difficult. It's like, if you struggle with the singular they, just pretend I'm two people, and that will get it right. I'm also not going to argue about my pronouns because I can't be bothered. Cannot be bothered with that. Again, as I said in this video, nothing you can say will change who I am or what pronouns I use. So that was my experiences of being trans in the news. Don't forget to like this video as always, drop a comment in, a respectful one. Share with your friends if they're thinking about being in the news. Subscribe to my channel and ring the bell so you get notified every time I post a video. See ya!